Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome on behalf of Knauf Seating Solutions and Healthcare Radius. I think it's time to look at the third edition that we are now discussing, a very relevant and a pertinent topic addressing the unseen hospital indoor air quality and infectious disease. So I thought for the audience as well as for our eminent panel today, I just wanted to quickly give you a kind of footprints that ITP has. It's an incredible number of people, and the numbers speak volumes about themselves. Just a quick introduction about Healthcare Radius. Healthcare Radius magazine, through our various channels, magazine, websites, events, and social media, we actively engage our audience with highly focused editorial content. Our goal is to help our audience navigate the current healthcare landscape and manage the evolving expectations surrounding healthcare, technology, architecture, construction, in order to build environments that improve patient outcomes and satisfaction. I have the privilege to welcome each of the very distinguished panel that we had, and on to start with a very legendary name here, ladies and gentlemen. Architect Shashi Prabhu himself is joining us. As the founder of Shashi Prabhu and Associates, Shashi Prabhu has imbibed his values of being honest and a trendsetter. All the services and landmarks delivered by the firm started off in 1967 with architecture and urban planning services. He designed the Wankhede Stadium in 1972 and delivered India's first postmodern cricket stadium in just 11 months. Now that's incredible. In fact, from then till now, the firm has a hot century of a sports stadium. Mr. Shashi Prabhu took the lead in 1984 to redefine the design practices in the healthcare field. With extensive study in USSR and the USA, he has delivered Mumbai's iconic Leelavati Hospital and 30 more hospitals across India till date. With 50 years of invaluable experience, Mr. Shashi Prabhu holds many illustrious membership and has held many efficient positions of influence. Welcome, Mr. Shashi Prabhu. The another gentleman, very popular not only in India, internationally as well, Mr. Pankaj Dharkar, a renowned MEP and green building consultant, an ASHRAE and IGBC fellow, provides innovative and sustainable solutions in the field of building engineering services. During his rich experience of 40 years, he has successfully designed and completed more than 4,000 projects of various applications. He is currently National Chair, FSAI Suraksha Index, a first global index to rate safety and security of buildings, which help in proper fire audits, and also Chairman FSAI COVID Task Force. Mr. Pankaj R. Dharkar has always been a dynamic member and contributed tremendously towards achieving the goal and visions of various engineering societies at national and international level. We have Dr. Anup R. Warrier, is a consultant, Department of Infectious Disease and Hospital Infection Control, a physician with over 9 years of experience and a specialized training in management of infectious diseases and infections in hospitals. His special interests are tropical infections, fever of unknown etiology evaluation, infections in ICU and HIV medicine, antimicrobial stewardship and cost, effective evidence-based infection control. Up next, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Shuchin Bajaj is a serial entrepreneur and investor. He holds an MD in internal medicine from Rajasthan University and is the founder director of the Ujala Cygnus group of hospitals. He also heads the business development, branding, marketing, fundraising, and overall management responsibility within the organization. Before his stint in Ujala Cygnus group of hospitals, he was the founder and CEO of Altius Healthcare from 2008 to 2011 and the founder director of Cygnus Medicare 2011 to 2019. He's the recipient of the British Government 2015 Gurukul Fellowship for Leadership and Excellence Award at King's College London and was also selected for Freeship to the Innovating Health of Tomorrow Fellowship at INSEAD, France in 2017. I call him very fondly Joyda, very, very thorough gentleman, great person to be on the panel today. Joydeep Chakraborty is currently holding the position of Chief Operating Officer of PD Hinduja Hospital and Medical Research Center with 21 years of experience in the healthcare industry. A while back, I was talking to him and I said, you have been going to the hospital from quite some time. He said, I never stopped. So I think that's what Joyda is all about. And he has closely worked with and on projects with the central government, state government, including government bodies like Niti Aayog for healthcare domain. His activities are not just restricted to quality in healthcare, but also outside healthcare. Educate the Girl Child, Food for the Poor, and Needy are few campaigns that the club runs currently under Joy's mentorship. And now very own, our very dear friend Naresh Duble, our partner. In April 2020, the Knauf Group completed its acquisition of Armstrong World Industries EMEA and APAC business. Knauf is the market leader for the safe, healthy, and comfortable design of living spaces. Naresh Duble is responsible for driving the Armstrong India business for healthcare, education verticals, and marketing department. Over the past few years, Naresh and his team have impacted ceiling installation quality in India, upgrading ceiling installation contractors' skills in India. He has served Armstrong from the early days in India and worked in numerous leadership roles in sales and marketing since 2002. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that's quite an eminent and a very distinguished panel, which I think everybody, including me, is looking forward to hear from them. And let me bring in my very, my own editor, Sujatha Vishnuraj, who has co-created, worked on this stylist. Over to you, Sujatha.
Good evening and welcome to the third edition of Healthcare Radius Forum. Our first edition dealt with the topic of biophilic design in the healthcare ecosystem and patient experience, while in the second edition, we discussed the importance of acoustics in the healthcare. In this edition, the topic of discussion is indoor air quality and hospital-acquired infections, a topic which is very pertinent in this time where we are dealing with a pandemic. Hospitals are the unique environment for spread of infectious diseases. Considering that the hospitals are the backbone of a healthcare delivery system in India, it highlights the importance of indoor air quality. At this point, I will call upon Naresh, who will explain why we took up this topic for discussion. Naresh, over to you.
Thank you so much. And the second session, which we had on acoustics, we talk about designing hospitals at a different zone with different acoustical demands. And this session, we are going to talk, we're looking forward for a discussion and opinion from a panel like this, where we will touch upon how selection of materials like ceiling is the only surface which is visible all the time in any hospital or any building, has a great impact on the quality of air and quality of interiors which we experience into the hospitals. So next 90 minutes or so, my request would be for everyone out there, thank you so much for joining this discussion. Listen to these conversations little openly, because innovation is all about doing something differently than what we have done before. So this awareness which will come in our discussion, this is open forum. So this is different than a YouTube or a video log, right? So take a full advantage, ask your questions, and we'll be more than happy to pick up your questions and also discuss this point. So it's more like a discussion we are going to have, going at depth of how to improve the quality of air, reduce infection spread, take the infrastructure in this country to a whole new level. Those kind of outputs we can derive from this discussion in next 90 minutes. Thank you so much. We can start the session.
Thanks, Naresh. So, Mr. Prabhu, how important is controlling humidity in the healthcare system? Now that you are a veteran in designing hospital healthcare environment. So we would like to know from you, as a designer, how important is it controlling humidity in a healthcare system?
For me, the environment in the hospital has to be earlier, fastest recovery. Does it mean that air quality? Yes. Does it mean that traffic, congestion, everything boils down to ultimately people, and then faster recovery is desirable for any hospital, private or public. We are doing both, and the earlier recovery patient also is the beneficiary. Beneficiary is going to be patient as well as the management. So we see from the both angles. Now you are bringing the acoustic point of view. Today also where I am sitting, it is not 100% acoustic, but it is acoustic, so probably you have heard me correct. So let's go to from a general to the specific. So so that we'll be able to on a track, and then I will not go haywire, because my portion is the hospital design and not the managing the hospital. The management is a different subject altogether, but I'm designing a hospital for the last 45 and odd years. So I've got some experience. I'm still learning, and then the learning doesn't end. But we are with 45 years. got enough experience in the sense learning. So time and again we are changing and look forward to adopt new systems, talking to professionals, doctors, and other technicians who are connected with the healthcare projects. This is what my general approach to the hospital design in our country. We don't want to copy what's happening in other countries.
Okay. So, so moving on to Mr. Chakraborty, what is your input on this, and what are the aspects and decision-making criteria when you consider with respect to humidity in a hospital?
Thank you very much for inviting me in this panel, and I hope I am audible to all of you. Is it clear?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you are.
So, to come to the point, I am a hospital administrator. I'm much and far away from the expertise what Mr. Shashi Prabhu and other holds today. And when I work as an administrator, I have some of the responsibilities to take and deliver as per the expectations of stakeholders. And we talk about the employee experience, we talk about patient experience. So when we look at it, you asked a very pertinent question, that what are the how important the humidity factor, and how do you decide the your solution or system for that nature. It is needless to say that if I look at it from the patient point of view, in one hand, I have patients who are either admitted or coming for a while in the outpatient department. They look for the right humidity, and which is known to us between 40 to 60% relative humidity. The simple reason is, below that, it causes not only discomfort, but also it is medically not a very acceptable condition to have. It can damage, it can affect our health condition. When I get into little more in the clinical aspect of it, if you think about the operating room and all, and if the humidity goes down, then the nature of the air and all, to get more humidity, it can even take the contents of the human skin, open wound, and from there it can get it. The third bit, if you talk about humidity, can cause risk for my employees. And how? Because of, it can give some sorts of electricity, it can give some sorts of shock, which can affect not only the staff, also the patients, if it is not managed well. And finally, I come to a thing like different medical equipments. The way it is managed, it needs certain amount of humidity in the environment. So if I keep all these stakeholders interest in mind, I must ensure that I have the right humidity in place. Then question arises, how do I decide about what I need and what I need to get for my own hospital? Traditionally, to get the humidity, the steam kind of solutions were very much popular. And even today, in many hospitals, we have that kind of solution. But please remember what I have been, told by our own engineering team, that those are becoming little uh, or comparatively expensive than some of the recent advanced technology which has come into place. We have seen, or rather we have started using in some of the places, things like your HEPA filters and things like that. Those are also making some sorts of economical sense to us. And what we always do, we try to get the best possible solution, as Mr. Naresh was talking about, and I know his company is coming up with some of those new technologies and all, which are going to be solution. So we want to evaluate and look for some of these solutions, and I'm sure we can continue, and I'll be happy to share some of the other thoughts maybe in the next round of question. Thank you.
I would like to show a short video, which is about humidity and so leakages in building is linked with the humidity. You know, in any building for that matter, if you have leakage happening from any source, maybe the air conditioning not functioning well, or maybe structural problem, leakage coming in. There are multiple disadvantages when leakage happen, like there can be hazard of fire, structural damage for sure in long terms. But certainly one thing happens in any building is ceiling getting damaged. That's where the first thing it has been seen. So there is a tendency for people to go for a material which hide the leakage. Just see the short video and then probably we'll discuss in detail about it because it has great impact on quality of the air. Can you see my screen? So we are saying healthy hospitals, healthy air. It's one surface, as I said, ceilings, and one important aspect is humidity levels and then the air quality levels. We'll get into both.
A trapdoor being really a trap for AC which is leaking and the ceiling getting impacted because of that. Now moistures and water on the ceiling. Got to stay with this moisture and water, and that gives a humidity and bacteria growth.
We have specialists here with us, so we can get deeper into impact of high humidity on the growth of bacteria and germs. We saw the low humidity problem coming from Joy Chakraborty. If the ceiling's like a traditional gypsum or a concealed one, there is no accessibility and you don't know where the source of leakage is. Maybe the slope of the ceiling so that you detect somewhere or you have a trap of a trap door. So that is a very important problem which need to be solved into hospital building, more importantly, because this runs 24/7, 365 days. There is no downtime. And that is how it is very, very different than any other building. So selection of the modularity, and there are special solutions around corridors like FS600 we can talk about for different projects. But yes, let's talk about indoor air quality and the impact of humidity on that. So I would like to come to Dr. Bajaj. So the question to you is, what in your experience, the implication of this kind of leakages or a high humidity or wet walls or wet ceilings, into the infection and impact on your patient and people who run the hospital, the doctors and the staff? What happens when such condition, which happens in a lifetime of a building?
Thanks, Naresh ji. So see, internal air quality, as we know, involves a variety of factors. It is not just the contaminants or the pollutants. It is also the temperature. It is also the humidity. It is also the outside air quality. And even as we are speaking, as you asked, what are the effects of poor IAQ? So even as we are speaking now, there are at this moment more than 1.4 million people across the globe who are suffering from nosocomial infections or hospital acquired infections, as we commonly call them. And there are more than 80,000 reported deaths every year just due to that. And these are only the reported deaths, which, as we all know, are much more stringent and prevalent in the western part of the world and not so in the other parts of the world. So the numbers would be, of course, much higher. I am sure in our part of the geography, it is very difficult for us to report, a death caused due to nosocomial or hospital acquired infection. It is very, very tough for all of us to convince our administrators or our doctors to certify a death like that. Due to this humidity, there are a huge number of factors, not just for patients. See, patient is the most important criteria for all of us, and preventing these hospital acquired infections are very important. But as from the business side, it is not just the patient welfare, it is also the fact that many organizations have now started refusing to cover hospital acquired infections as part of a payer program. So this trend was started in 2008 by Medicaid in the USA, which refused to cover a variety of nosocomial infections for reimbursement of hospitals, and hospitals had to bear that cost themselves. But now many insurance companies in India have also started refusing to cover for resuturing, resurgeries, infection due to nosocomial if they are certified that way. And so it is not just the patient health, it is also the fiscal health of the organization that will suffer if we do not take care of the internal air qualities and the humidity levels. The third, of course, as Joyda told us, that the equipment that is needed to work in a particular environment. So especially our cath labs, our CT scans, they are very, very sensitive to humidity levels. So we have hygrometers installed in all our critical areas and areas where all the equipment is. And we routinely find that if we do not operate particular HVACs and air conditioning efficiently, then the routine humidity levels rise up very, very quickly. And that leads to many problems in the machinery. And again, that leads to problems in the physical health of the organization. So in addition to patient health being compromised, and the machinery health being compromised, also we know that the internal air quality environment affects the morale and the mood of the employees as well, and of course subsequently to their retention levels. So if we do not take care of the productivity, morale, health and welfare of the employees, of course their retention levels will suffer, and we will be forced to look for a high quality manpower. As we all know, healthcare is a very, very human resource intensive industry. We have to pamper our human resources a lot, because all of them are highly qualified, highly paid, and of course due to all this very temperamental as well. So if we do not provide them good quality environments, it will be difficult for us to retain them. So for the fiscal, for the human resource, and for the financial as well as the patient's health, all of these healths will be taken care of only if we make sure that the internal air quality, the temperature, humidity, etc. is maintained in the hospitals that we operate.
Yeah, thank you for that. So there are materials like which shows the leakage, and there are material which hides the leakage. So what would you really prefer, to see the leakage as quickly as possible?
Yes, of course. I think it is most important that we see the leakage. If we cover the garbage with a cover that does not let us see the garbage, it won't take care of the garbage. It will just lead to putrefying of the garbage, and once we remove the cover, it will be that much more problematic. So I don't think hiding the leakage is a solution at all. You don't want your cath labs and CT scans to go for a toss, and your patients to all be suffering from Klebsiella superadded infections just because you wanted the walls to look neat and clean.
And rightly you said, what get major get improved, and you have the meters which shows you humidity levels, and that's awesome. I would like to go to Dr. Anup Warrier. The hospital indoor air quality is in respect to transmission of infection. That's your specialty. What are the parameter for the control of infection? And you can start with the humidity, impact of the high humidity and infection related to that, so that audience get clear about how do you need to maintain what levels, and how do we really monitor them on an ongoing basis.
Yeah. So, Naresh, so we have to divide this into two eras. So we have a pre-COVID era and the COVID era. So in the pre-COVID era, the key hospital-acquired infection which all of us were concerned about is gram-negative bacteria, and maybe some things like MRSA to some extent. And these were primarily transmitted through direct contact, by handling of lines and tubes, which the patients in critical care used to be there. And our focus on airborne transmission was limited to certain diseases like tuberculosis, for example, and chickenpox, and rarely even measles. But however, they formed a very small proportion of hospital-acquired infections, and hence we were all concerned with surface cleaning, surface disinfection, and then obviously the handling, the hand hygiene part, and equipment cleaning, etc., rather than the indoor air quality when you look at transmission of hospital-acquired infections. However, a little more detailed review shows that these organisms whom we traditionally considered as purely contact-borne, like Klebsiella, as Dr. Bajaj was mentioning, or some of the bugs like Acinetobacter and even MRSA, they are actually classified under a group which can be sold as aerodispersible. Okay? So meaning they don't float around as far as the tuberculous bacilli, but they do have the ability to float in the air sufficiently and cause an infection in the adjoining patient or the patient adjoining that. Okay? So air does play a role even in this transmission of so-called traditionally contact-borne bacteria. So that was one input which we gained over these years. So this was the pre-COVID part. So with the COVID coming in, this has made things very much difficult, where we don't focus on indoor air quality because everybody is talking about ventilation as the key factor in preventing transmission of COVID, right? So COVID is now over the year, slowly evidence has been built up to sustain and what you call support the theory that there happens, this airborne transmission is a reality for COVID, and it's not just droplet, which you can prevent by social distancing and wearing a medical mask, right? So air plays a significant role in transmission of COVID also. So WHO and CDC also has come out and supported this theory now over the last 1 year. Now, once you have understood that there are two groups of diseases, one, your traditional bacteria, which could be aerodispersible and cause the clusters within the same ICU through air, and you have something like COVID, which can be not typically airborne, where it can spread through larger distances through your air handling units, especially when there are shared rooms and spaces using the same air handling units. All of us know that a significant proportion of the air within the healthcare system is recirculated air. And classically, this recirculated air was not filtered in the common clinical areas. Yes, in operating rooms, we had a filtered air. Maybe in high acuity ICUs, we had filtered air, but not in regular clinical setting. So in perspective of this COVID, this becomes very, very important, right? So if you ask me to break down what are the critical aspects of preventing this nosocomial transmission of an airborne pathogen, so the most important number one is achieving the right ventilation which is required, and that equals to air exchanges per hour. So that is one of the measures. We can also do a proxy measure by looking at the carbon dioxide in ppms. So that's a proxy measure of that, of the ventilation. Once you achieve or you are clear with the ventilation part, the next is to ensure that the filtration or inactivation of the pathogen. Now we know that stuff like COVID, etc., cannot be efficiently filtered. To have inbound or filtration of air, which the recirculated air causes pressure differentials, which can affect your already existing AHU settings. So that's not an easy thing to do. So hence you come to and try to do on the pathogen inactivation, or how do you disinfect the pathogen in the air. So then there are other solutions which we can probably talk about later. So, but that is the second thing. So first is about ventilation. Second is pathogen inactivation or filtration. And then is to the idea to prevent pathogen proliferation, right? The ability of pathogens to multiply and increase in number. So again, you have to divide it into pre-COVID and COVID era. So in the pre-COVID, we were bothered about fungal pathogens in a very small subset of patients, the bone marrow transplant recipients, the transplant recipients, say kidney transplant or liver transplant, right? Because these were classified as very vulnerable group, where a rise in the fungal spores in the air could directly impact them, cause an invasive fungal infection in this group, right? So we had specified engineering recommendations where you used to house these bone marrow transplant patients and organ transplant patients. Now with the COVID, everybody who gets a COVID has become vulnerable. We have seen mucormycosis cases to an extent we have never seen in our lifetime. Okay? So in my last around 18 years of medical practice, I have not seen more than 100 mucormycosis, and we know that in just 2-3 months, India has reported more than 5,000 mucormycosis. So that is the extent to which COVID has made general patients, not organ transplant, not bone marrow transplant, not cancer patients, regular people like you and me, vulnerable to fungal spores in the air. So this means that it is not just your bone marrow units or your transplant units which has to focus on fungal spores, but also your general hospital, all your wards, all your rooms, even for your employees, it is risky. So in the COVID thing, you also have to focus on this, the proliferation or the multiplication of fungal spores. So there, this humidity has a thing. The leakages, what you mentioned, has a significant role. The material which you use has a significant role, in addition to obviously the filtering part and the ventilation, which I spoke about earlier. Okay? So that is in a nutshell what I would put it in this perspective.
No, excellent science around what is really happening in the hospital, because as an architect or designers, once we know the real world of a user, we can design that buildings that much efficiently. I would like to show, before we go to Pankaj Dharkar, I would like to show a popular product which is used over 40 years in healthcare across the world, has been treating the pre-COVID era, what you explained very nicely. It is a product called BioGuard Acoustics. BioGuard is a UL lab certified, as I said before, a product which is recommended in ICUs, burn areas, and every hospital in the world has this product in a critical facility. But where you spoke, sir, it's quite clear that today we have 100 patients, tomorrow may have 200 patients, and each area need to be really been taken to the utmost level of care we can do in a maximum number of surfaces we can adhere to. Again, this gives you very high efficiency on air conditioning, and we'll come to Dharkar sir to understand the importance of insulation and the air circulation which happens in normal hospitals. There's a new product launch which is with silver ion technology in a metal category, and a metal plane category specifically when it comes to healthcare facilities in this. So I have a picture in the front, Dharkar sir, and you can, sir, unmute. The question to you is, how, let's say, somebody use a perforated surface or a non-appropriate surface like a cement sheet or a calcium silicate kind of a ceilings, which doesn't show you the leakages and things like that. What is the impact of such products in the ceiling? Because ceiling is like a sixth surface, always present there. So what is the impact on air conditioning efficiency, as well as the functioning with respect to air quality in a healthcare system?
So Naresh, I think impact can be extremely serious. As earlier, we had a very interesting setup, some contest which is set by Dr. Warrier and Dr. Bajaj and Mr. Shashi Prabhu himself. Of course, I would also like to take you through what is happening in our air conditioning industry post-COVID. I think it has completely transformed the way we were thinking about, and as Dr. Warrior said, that the challenges are going to be severe. So if you don't mind, I will like to run quickly with respect to air conditioning and specifically ventilation, what are the things. So if you permit me, I'll just like to share some quick update. And
I would like you to touch on, how exactly ceilings and air conditioning get integrated, and when you have air going through multiple holes, like you saw in that picture, what exactly happens? So we get aware about a dedicated return air duct versus plenum, and how you really manage it in designing an hospital air conditioning with respect to air quality and infection.
Sure. I'll try to cover that quickly, but can you see my screen, sir? Okay, so to me, the COVID-19 pandemic is one of the most dangerous challenges this world is facing today. And it is a human crisis with severe health and socio-economic consequences. And the way we were designing our system, the way we were designing air conditioning and clean room system is definitely going to change. And some of the prevalent, even the green building concepts are already taking care of required prevention and control strategy. But I think the measures will have to be more enhanced, stringent now in terms of increased ventilation, prevention of cross-infection, maintaining relative humidity, proper cleaning and disinfection techniques, will probably extending to the crowd managing and also facilities for epidemic control. So integrating new sustainable technology during design, construction, and operation phase of all infrastructure will also lower the cost while improving the safety. So COVID-19 was thought to be spread mainly through close contact from person to person during first period, but as Dr. Warrier said, new evidences are now confirming that the virus can be remaining airborne for longer times. So this is a big challenge on air conditioning and filtration. In addition to close contact with infected people and contaminated surfaces, the spread of COVID-19 may also occur via airborne particles in indoor environments. So layout and design of building as well as HVAC system can all impact potential airborne spread of the viruses. So correctly designed and properly maintained HVAC system keeps humidity at correct level, decreases the spread of bacteria and viruses, and improves the comfort level and even saves energy. So EPA recommends increased ventilation with outdoor air filtration as important component of a larger strategy that includes social distancing, wearing masks, surface cleaning, disinfecting, hand washing, and other precautions. If I see my global societies, the American Society of Heating Refrigerating Engineers, and also my ISHRE, Indian Society of Heating and Refrigerating Engineers, and I pick up the main important points for effect controlling transmission. That includes optimized airflow patterns, directional airflow, zone pressurization, dilution, ventilation, in-room air cleaning system, general exhaust ventilation, personalized ventilation, local exhaust ventilation at source, central system filtration, use of UV, UVGI, controlling indoor temperatures and relative humidity. All global societies of engineering related to air conditioning and ventilation engineers have published several guidelines, and overall general guideline is to increase ventilation rate, improve filtration level, and use active cleaning technologies and prevention and control. So more fresh air and higher number of air changes in building will help driving out contaminants and infectious particle effectively, while increased ventilation does not guarantee the elimination of risk altogether. It is the safest way to reduce the chances of spread of disease. We were talking about relative humidity, and Dr. Bajaj rightly said that 40 to 60% is an area where we need to maintain, which is going to take care of bacteria, viruses, fungi, mites, respiratory infection, allergic and asthma diseases. So this is something which is very, very important. How do we do it? I'm not going to discuss, but maintaining this is something subject which is very, very important and critical. We need to ensure that the cross infection is secured. That can happen with the right pressure gradients. So the humidity, the ideal humidity space condition, as we said, has to be 40 to 60%. And if humidity level increases on 60%, the microbe and viruses growth is facilitated, while if it goes below 40% and it remains there, even COVID spread is found to be spreading very fast. As Dr. Warrier said, it can even create static electricity, and it can be a very, very dangerous thing to happen. ASHRAE clearly gives you guidelines post-COVID. There have been changes in this number, and these are the latest thing which they have come up with for hospital areas. Critical and intensive area, minimum outdoor air changes are 2. The minimum total air changes are 6 for airborne infection isolation rooms. Outdoor ACPs are 2, while minimum air changes are 12, and examination room 2 and 6. Similarly, CDC recommends 6 to 12 air changes per hour for airborne infection isolation rooms. And dealing with viruses and other airborne infection, it is therefore recommended to have higher ventilation rate, which is at proximity of 6 to 12. So it is also recommended to stop recirculating air in buildings or have 100% fresh air ventilation flow in areas with COVID-19 outbreaks, since virus particles in return ducts can re-enter the building in a centralized air handling unit system circulation. So normally building services designer recirculate air to save energy in buildings where the heating or cooling demand is too high for 100% fresh air. We all know this. So there is a huge risk of recirculating of air that can help virus spread in infected areas. Appropriate ventilation, when properly applied and designed, can limit the spread of airborne viruses. So the cooling demand is going to increase in this case, and increasing the outdoor ventilation rate, what a HVAC system is designed for, could cause an unpleasant and undesired increase or decrease of humidity in building depending on climate. Remember, when we talk about 100% fresh air, if we are in monsoon season, it means a lot of energy required for dehumidifying it. The condensation control also has to be considered when outdoor air conditions are far different than indoor conditions, which is often the case when outdoor temperatures drop below freezing. When more fresh air is brought in the building, the issue of maintaining pressurization also has to be taken care in critical areas. So when UVC light is used for germinal purposes, it is referred as UVGI or ultraviolet germicidal irradiation. Installing UVGI lamp inside the ductwork can help protect occupants from exposure. The UV waves damage the virus DNA, which stops the virus from feeding to the reproducing and thereby kills it. Special ultraviolet UV cleaning equipments can be used for supply air or at room air treatment, which is effective at killing bacteria and viruses, fungi and spores. UVC radiation has short wavelength and high energy compared to UV radiation, which enable it to be function at the best in a direction line at a short distance. So upper room UV fixtures have shown to be effective assets and use of infection control in high-risk clinical settings. Lamps and germicidal ultraviolet eradication EUVGI have found to have decreased the proliferation of microbes in HVAC systems. So properly designed and maintained UV system can often combine with filtration, humidity control, and airflow management can reduce the infection and viruses. UVGI can be used many ways, and UVGI lamp can be retrofitted in existing ductwork installed at cooling coils and common room walls, ceiling height greater than 7 feet, and these lights generally can inactivate viruses that not directly exposed. Such a covered it dust or soil. So because of effectiveness of UVGI lamp in inactivating SARS or CoV2 viruses, about exposure time, they are the best use of treating surfaces in areas when airflow is slowest to ensure they're eradicated for a long time. So there are various challenges. That we also have a possibility of using ozone. Bipolar ionization is also getting popular. Of course, filtration happens to be the best way, but it is a challenge because if currently the return air filters were not with HEPA, it will mean huge modification in current system. There are various standards available for hospitals, whether it is patient room, infectious isolation room, protective isolation room, intensive care room, delivery room, laboratories. We have all standards in place, but putting filtration is though the best way to go forward, but it could mean huge energy cost in terms of our air distribution system. And if it is not planned, because currently the practice was to go for critical areas like operation theaters, ICUs, ECUs with this system, but many other areas of the hospital, we were not going with HEPA filters MERV 13 and 14. So this is something where air purifiers or localized solutions of UV could come and play the role, or you have to think about portable HEPA equipments, which of course take the space, and in clean room, probably not many people will permit this. Friends, IQ in hospital is become very important subject post-COVID. As Dr. Warrier was saying earlier, TB bacteria, which when active TB patient used to cough, sneezes, or speaks airborne, TB droplets would be generated. We know about the Legionella, which could come from cooling tower water or any misting system which is happening, whether it is Staphylococcus, which is a bacteria which can come from the skin and in the nose, blood, urine of an infected patient, or fungi which can come through the clothes of frontline workers, or it could come from the shoes. So all this is very well-known fact, and we are now entering an area which has to deal with indoor air quality. So the success of IOQ control in hospital now will strongly lies on a joint effort on engineering, healthcare, administration, and supporting staff. A well-coordinated effort is required between all of us, the architects, the engineers, the hospital owners, and it is a reality that post-COVID sustainable buildings will be a balancing act, and not about energy. Energy is important, but concept of even green building is going to take shape in a big way. And I personally believe that understanding of modular rooms, you spoke about whether you can allow a perforated ceiling. I think it is something which we cannot dream of. And with the COVID, I think the challenges are going to be extraordinary. The pressures are going to be extraordinary, and we cannot allow anything to get settled in the airstream of any building. And therefore, it is extremely important to have right selection of our construction and envelope, which is happening in the hospital in all the areas, not only operation theaters and CCUs and ICU, but I think the importance of having a clean surface a clean environment has now increased and gone beyond those critical areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dharkar. That was a very self-explanatory presentation. I would like to get in Dr. Bajaj here. Dr. Bajaj, you mentioned about how Western world has, they have particular measures to look at the patients who died due to HAI. According to a US government estimate, there is 1 out of every 25 patients who enter a hospital develops an HAI. How does India have a HAI control policy, and what are the efforts that are being taken to prevent HAI?
See, India has as good policies as anywhere else in the world. So we have one of the most stringent quality accreditation systems in the world. The NABH is, I think, almost a point by point carbon copy of the JCI. So there is no difference at all in the level of quality parameters that we have. We have everything in that, including catheter infections, resuturing rate, reoperation theater. But see, the problem is not in the policies as in everything else in India. It's in the execution and the reporting of work. So it's not like India does not have the proper laws. It is just how we execute them, how we carry them forward, what is the reporting area like. So India has the one of the least hospitalization rates in the world. It does not mean that we are healthier than everyone else, right? It is the fact that the access to good quality healthcare is not there. The access to the fact that the hospitals are not accessible at all. So we have all the proper policies in place. NABH has all the criteria in place. We have more than 650 parameters to track the quality of each and every hospital and healthcare provider. But the fact that the reporting and the execution is not as stringent as the Western world, that is the point that leaves a lot to be desired yet.
We have architect Mr. Prabhu, who has designed a lot of government hospitals. We have seen that the BMC hospitals that you have designed, Mr. Prabhu, you have made it world class, wherein we don't see that kind of architecture for hospital anywhere else in India. How do we make government hospital world class, and how we can change from the current scenario if we go to tier 2, tier 3 cities, etc.?
As far as the program is concerned, that is FSP is concerned, we are with the world. But as far as the air quality is concerned, we have to follow ASHRAE. I don't know why people are not able to really go to that point and see that in the hospital, outside air is eliminated in the sense, look at the situation that is the local corporation here in Mumbai. People want to keep the windows open. People still believe that outside air is good. Now here we are talking about circulating the air, taking the fresh air, treat it, modify it to temperature, whatever it is. And we look at only operation theater to be absolutely cleanless, in the sense there should not be any kind of infectious material there, because we treat the wall, we take ultimate care. Same thing in ICU, CCU and other areas. But in the OPD, which I am designing here, I am told after my designing, building is completed, numbers of patients to be visiting routine will be not less than 3,000 in number. Now I believe, I don't know how doctors are going to deal with that, but these patients are coming with different kind of elements. COVID is one of the things, but other elements, and going to transmit that. And then I am thinking of doing the air changes being suggested by ASHRAE, but people are still not really getting convinced that air quality is really important for the patient recovery. Why do we hospitalize the patient? Because in the house, we can't get what treatment we get in hospital in terms of medical facility, in terms of air quality, doctor's attention, all these factors. But healthcare is more important on the air around you. See, because I listen to everybody here, I feel that we are neglecting this area, and then we feel that outside air is still good. COVID has really taught us a lot. COVID people people are wearing masks and whatnot. But is that enough for the hospital? No. Hospital has to be really germ-free. But we have to introduce the proper system. People believe, imagine that I am done the head office of the municipal corporation, which is totally air conditioned, but for the hospital, they are really putting their elbow down or all the time crunching about why the ward should be air conditioned. I don't know. The fan will not work in today's situation. A person is carrying the infection will be caught up by the bee, which is not happening in the hospital which I designed Lilavati, which is hasn't happened the hospital I designed somewhere else. But the municipal corporation, I think we have to take forward some kind of paper or some kind of, I would call it a request to the honorable commissioner and then circulate. Because, this kind of forum educating me also. Every time we are learning. But the one point is sure that we have to have quality air where we will feel that cross infection will be really stopped forthwith. This is a very important factor, which I am learning. See, every day you learn. When you go outside, we feel the cleanliness. See, I have another office in Dubai. There I go to the hospitals just to check what a quality, what a cleanliness, which doesn't happen here. Why? Is it a laxity, no intention, or it is something like lack of knowledge? See, all the issues we have to really tackle and then come with some kind of joint paper and then submit to the authority. I know the people at the helm of the affairs, but probably they don't know what is hospital care. We have to really educate them in a different way. Educating somebody is a kind of an insult. But when I don't know something about some issue, I should be very open and then try to be receptive rather than offensive. So this is what I am learning, out of this discussion. What is important in the air quality in the hospital, air changes for that matter. People will differ, people say, why the air changes? Why not to keep the window open? What do you mean by air changes? When in COVID situation, outside air is polluted, definitely. Otherwise, COVID will not get into your house. We are catching infection outside. In the hospital, actually should be germ free. It should be clean, good air, quality air. So this has to be really come out with some kind of paper or some kind of submission by all of us. This
Okay,
is my blank submission.
There are two questions from the audience who are coming. One is about the question is it required to put ceiling at all the areas? Because if we put ceilings, it might be difficult to check the wall condition at all the time.
See, how can you keep the ceiling open with all kinds of paraphernalia going above? Air conditioning ducts, different kind of ventilation pipes, suction pipes, oxygen pipes, name it, what is not going upstairs? Do we want to keep it open and then again clean it? It's not possible. So we'll try to put the false deck. Material is immaterial, but not something really dangerous in the sense dropping out of chipping it off. So we have to go for a proper false ceiling being used all over the world. See, there can't be a compromise. You are talking about the ceiling. We have to cover up our all infrastructure which is above the ceiling, which is a false ceiling, I'll call it. And then ducts, etc., the highly sensitive. They have been wrapped with some kind of material cloth. We don't know what's happening to that. Sometimes places a rat goes inside, eat away that. So this kind of situation very common for this. I would not call it a local hospital, but generally it is. People try to copy it. Believe me, Mumbai city as such, whatever you do in Mumbai, the rest of the Maharashtra, rest of the India will follow. So we have to have some kind of system and then address it and publish it. Publication and educating people is more important. And then all legends are sitting here about ventilation. They will agree with me. 99% of the people are not aware about the air quality, to be very honest.
Sujatha, before we go ahead, there's a question on PVC ceilings and PVC ceiling in the false ceiling is also an invitation for fire hazards. It's when anything happens on a material which like a PVC and the droplets could be far more dangerous. So BS 476 class 0, class 1, DO, no droplets, no fumes. That kind of material is very, very important. So It is when you select a material, there are classifications and there are certifications available. So it is very important to see who has certified this. Like I said, BioGuard Acoustic certified by UL Lab. Now, UL Lab certification is not available for bacteria, germs, or fire or any other thing when it is not there, because it's an international quality lab. So such things are extremely important, while it's not selecting for the eyes, but for the function in which we do. So that's that. I think that was a very important question, because people just put some material to get maybe the maintenance friendliness, but what it does to the building and the life and the fire, seismic, acoustics, and humidity, all those factors really matters. And more important, like we said, any building in the city can come down because of earthquake or anything, but hospital building cannot, because that's the building which will support the entire system in the time of need. So we need to design our hospital building the best in class and the best in city, with respect to materials and interiors and finishing and structure. Yeah, over to you, Sujatha.
Dr. Warrior, you mentioned about COVID-19 spread. So the obvious question is HVAC accentuating COVID-19 spread, and what are the roles of surfaces in this?
So as the first session when we were discussing the transmission, and I had tried to bring up this topic of the COVID era and the changes in terms of our perspective regarding ventilation, filtration, and inactivation due to this COVID part. When we look at the traditional way the HVACs were built, so they were primarily one of the key things was recirculation of air. Okay? So that had significant impact on energy savings. So it was an inherent part, and we have already seen the guidelines, the ASHRAE and the CDC guidelines, which out of 6 or 12, they want only 2 is fresh air intakes, and rest of them are primarily recirculated air. Okay. However, with the COVID coming in, and with the traditional HVAC systems not being equipped for disinfection or inactivation of this air, the recirculated air, so this has resulted that the centrally air conditioned units with traditional HVAC systems will result in a lot of outbreaks. And one of the international outbreaks in Germany was highlighted in the presentation which we saw earlier. But we have to get this thing very clear that with a lot of pressure from the public health authorities in converting hospitals and areas into COVID wards, COVID rooms and all, we used to just construct temporary partitions or sort of demarcation between floors and all to admit COVID and non-COVID. You cannot look at hospitals or units with just structural partitions. With the advent of COVID, you have to do an airflow mapping, and you have to consider this either COVID or non-COVID with that perspective of airflow, right? So even though you may have a wall or a temporary wall or a partition in between, doesn't mean that the air is not shared and the airspace is not the same. The air handling unit which is contributing to the flow could be the same. So this has been neglected, and practically this has been also be impossible to adhere because of this pressure on the beds. We are supposed to suddenly create beds out of nowhere for harboring this COVID patients, and on the other side we are supposed to cater to non-COVID patients also. And most of us did that by creating partitions which are not the right way when you look at the airflow patterns. So just to summarize, the COVID has brought into perspective the clear need to understand airflows which is created and driven by your HVAC systems. It has brought into forefront the fact that the recirculated air is not disinfected in traditional systems, which has to be done when you are catering to COVID patients. And this is long term. And again, there is a misconception among a lot of healthcare employees, management, etc., that hospital administrators, that this is a short-term thing. Why put money into it? Because this is going to go away in a couple of months. It is not. This is going to become endemic, and this is going to stay with us. And it's only if you have sustained transmission prevention methods that you can prevent outbreaks and these waves.
The next question is how technology can improve air quality in hospitals. Mr. Dharkar, would you like to take that question?
I spoke about some active technologies like applications of UV or modular HEPA filter based units, or there could be a bipolar technology. So these are the technologies which are now seeing the work. Traditionally, a normal HEPA filter used to take a lot of pressure drop. So if you see a air handling unit system, the the pressure drop of a kind of a dirty filter could have gone to a level of 80 mm to 90 mm, which will mean a lot of fan power is required. So that is where whole research is happening. Nano-based technologies are coming, and the active filter pressure drops are now getting lower and lower. But we all know that HEPA filters are non-cleanable filters. They cannot be cleaned. So as it moves, the pressure drop keeps on increasing. So instead of that, people are now shifting towards technologies which can kill the microbes, and that is where UV, UVGI, bipolar is gaining the ground. And particularly when a new design is happening, the approach could be different. You could probably do that with right filtration, but when it is question of retrofitting the current hospitals, current areas of ICUs and CCUs, we will see such new technologies taking over the traditional filter technologies.
This is the right time where I can talk about a new launch, and I'm very excited to bring this launch, UVC Luftreiniger. This product is an innovation in a way. Whatever we spoke right now is going to be implemented. It's a very innovative product, very small product, can fit into a palm, just a 12 centimeter long. It gets fitted into out air coming into the premises. So you see a UVC here, a UVC fitted here, so it can get fitted onto any of these modular ceilings or vertical walls and things like that. So we discussed this at length. There is active and passive control. I will not get into this slide again. And what is more important to understand, that UVC gives a solution which is very different than UVA or UVB. And UVC technology is not new. It has been proven a long time across the world. And innovation out here is coming in LED. Now, when it comes in LED, it is monochromatic. And what it means by monochromatic is it is very controlled and directional. And we will see the test in a subsequent slide of this. So what happened with UVC is it's a very, very highest disinfectant. Like we said in the session before, it has capacity to deactivate RNA and DNA of most of the microbes. And because of virtue of doing that, it loses its efficacy and it cannot multiply itself in the air. So when the fresh air is coming in, it can actually get clean as it comes in. And as you saw in the picture out there, there are patients in the hospitals and they keep on generating aerosols. And those aerosols also go into ventilation, and every time it goes into ventilation, it to be killed, the virus need to be killed ongoingly. So that is how this system is very, very efficient, up to 99.99% efficacy it has. And because of LED, like it has huge life. It has life over 3 years kind of stuff without any maintenance. Retrofitting is extremely simple because it is fitted into exterior, no need to get into HVAC, downtime, maintaining, dismantling the facility. It has ISO 15858 certification. Now 15858 also take care of NIOSH guidelines, which is National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. It's also C certified. So C certification is not easy. It is safety norms for human and equipment. So this is highest certification in this. And you see this meter, if you take it to the back of the equipment, it gives 0 reading for radiation. If you keep it 1 feet away, it's a 0 reading. So it's a very focused, limited, well nurtured radiation of UVC rays, which kills the bacteria and clean the air as it comes into the room. So everything to the duct, anything happens to that, we don't have to worry about. At the point of consumption, this is clean 100% time. So there are various methods of checking the performances, and there are tests, and there are model case studies we have done across, and our team in our location can come and work with you, give a demo of this, install this in your premises. And this is really a boom, not only for hospitals, but maybe for your offices, transportations, many other areas are going to get impacted along with the false ceiling. This is the new innovation which is going to simplify the life and give us more confidence to come back and work in our premises more effectively. If you're interested on this, I would really request you to put your name or put yes into the chat box, and we can connect you with you. Just put your name and mobile number so we can connect with you with this solution and give a more elaborate technical demonstration with your entire team in your premises. So that's the launch.
I would like to invite your people in my
Right.
office and give them kind of a address wherein they will understand the product and we'll try to implement ongoing project and the project which are really going to be forthcoming to us. So I'll appreciate that. We do that normally in my office.
Right, sir. So we will do it. I'll get in touch with you personally and we will do it
Sure.
immediately.
Sure.
And thank you for all of you who are putting their name and number here. We have a technical committee members also from my office in the discussion right now here. So if you have any questions, you can put in, they can reply back to your questions regarding this. And that is how we can go it forward on this. So that's the launch from our side with respect to handling infection by having right material for the false ceilings and the walls. We can have a metal walls, we can have those kind of nanotechnology can still work, and ongoingly we can work on this particular thing.
Thank you for the inputs from everyone. And for the closing remarks, the final question. Now that we have a pandemic, how do we rethink rules of building design strategies in the post-pandemic architecture era? Mr. Prabhu, just start with you.
See, the pandemic is one of the issue we have to address it now. We don't know how many pandemics are going to come. Basically, the hygiene is more important. And we have to design building year after, taking into consideration how we do the ventilation, how to protect, how to have an infection-free area. So this is the basic thing, keeping the distances between the two buildings, how we plan the spaces, the more focus on that. Today, if somebody has a patient suffering from COVID, poor fellow is kept in isolation for 15 days. I don't know what kind of trauma he is going to go in, but this is the fact. And people look at it as he is suffering from some kind of very highly contagious disease. Nobody knows, who is carrying the COVID patient. Everybody is taking the vaccine, which is the today's, protection for us. But as the time comes, probably there could be some kind of influenza, whatever it may be, but we have to be ready in the planning to see that there is a flexibility, good material recommended by the authorities, which is really good, hygienic. This is what, more than aesthetics, I would give more value to the product effectiveness. So this is my focus is. Therefore, I said that I would like to have a deliberation with this particular product manufacturers and then implement it. Because every time we learn, we look into the product and we'll try to know, okay, this is what I seen in USA, this is what I seen in France, and now it's available in India. So I would require that, in the deliberations of must.
Okay. Mr. Dharkar?
So I think the hospitals of tomorrow are going to be having a large challenge in terms of understanding of air conditioning system. We always were taking care of many aspects of zoning, but we'll have to be negative. A lot of thrust will have to be created. How do we create negative pressure rooms? As Warrior sir said, that we'll have to think about even our rooms where patients are staying. Probably the earlier, when we used to design a 300-bed hospital, probably isolation room numbers were 4 to 6 or 8. Doctors can correct me. But probably the new hospital, complete floors or complete 1 or 2 floors will have to be thought in terms of isolation rooms, which will mean any pandemic they can address. I have seen challenges currently, even the 5-star hotels getting converted into Kuwait facility without understanding that the pressure gradients can ensure, and as Mr. Warrior was telling very rightly, that the mere partition walls will not isolate these areas. The understanding of zoning, the understanding of pressure gradients has to go to a next level where architects and engineers have to work together with the doctors to understand zoning, and the challenge is to make entire area infection free. So it is not only the level what temperature, humidity, airflow, but infection-free environment creation is going to be a new challenge now.
Dr. Warrier, closing comments from you, please.
My perspective, I just like to leave this discussion with maybe a hope or a prayer that the entrepreneurs and investors who own hospitals, who run hospitals, and who are going to build hospitals see it in their mind and heart that the money that you invest into the building and the HVAC is, it's really worth it. And that is believe me, it's really a tough thing to understand, because the benefits are abstract. It comes after so many years. So it's very, very difficult for people to understand why they should put so much money into it now. And I want to leave this discussion with that hope and prayer that, it gets into the people's psyche that, yes, they need to put in money into HVAC and design for the benefits for patients, employees, and themselves later.
Naresh, you want to say something?
So if you really see for any hospital building per se, the ceiling or the interior finishing cost is in the lower percentage of 3 to 5%. And if I talk about my product, which is a ceiling, it's not even a 1% cost if you consider equipment and machinery. So this is one area which is required to be transforming, having a larger impact onto the quality of the air, the quality of experience with respect to acoustics and performance, quality of maintenance which we do in that building, everything dramatically transform, because a running hospital cannot undertake a lot of VOCs or a lot of dust start coming in because of you are using a traditional methods of constructions for walls and the ceiling. So that's the way forward for it. Using some world-class technology like UVC can actually transform the experience for the clean air. That's the next level of integration with the ceiling systems. Using may not be like we said it very clearly. Dr. Bajaj said some of the areas used to be very, very important, but today we have to expand it over larger areas. So maybe every area require a BioGuard acoustics kind of a ceiling. Previously, we have designed some areas which are critical areas, ICUs, ICCUs, those kind of thing. Now this is the next era where we need to make hospital design as flexible as possible, where we can adopt and change the areas as per the requirements. We have to use a gaskets and aluminum grid and a higher-end solutions when it comes to pressurized room, negative pressure room, and a positive pressure rooms as per the requirement of the patient, whether it is a burn patient or a COVID patient. So things like that is an integral part of designing the healthcare facility going forward in next era. And this was very enlightening discussion what we had today. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. May I request we go to the vote of thanks?
Well, what do I say? I think I completely got so devoured in the discussion. And I think one of the points which really struck to me when Mr. Warrior said, the entrepreneurship here and the people who are the owners will have to have enormous amount of patience for buyback, in terms of the paybacks that happen in this investment. I think it's very well said. And since we run the biggest magazine in the country for hospitality, the amount of gestation period is long. So I think one has to hold a very big cause that why you are in this business, right? And what do I say? I think this is incredible discussion we had. And I think it was an eye-opener for many. And the reason why I say that, because if you see the bottom panel, there are 26 people asking 14 questions, 26 chat, my goodness. The audience has been very interactive and they really want to know. And lots of people are actually texting me on the WhatsApp, sir, can we have this one? I'm so sorry, people. They're all over from the Naresh, all over the country. But we will make sure that, we'll reach out to you. I would just like to say thank you for an enlightening session on indoor air quality and hospital-acquired infections. Indoor air quality is an important component of the design of any building, and it's vital when designing a hospital or a healthcare facility. I hope the discussion herein has given to all our listeners a good start in the right direction. This concludes our three-part series of Knauf Ceiling Solutions Healthcare Radius Forum. I would like to express my appreciation to our esteemed panelists and delegates of the webinar for their presence and contribution to making this webinar a great success. Finally, I would like to immensely and warmly and heartful thanks to Naresh Duble and Knauf Ceiling Solutions for being a perfect partner. So Naresh, indeed, our people there, I think he's absolutely brilliant professional that I have come across. And I think he really added tremendous value to make these webinars so enriching. So thank you once again, Naresh. I would request, we have interesting webinars coming up as we fold up this month in the quarter. It's been busy for all of us, and hopefully we are providing you the best content. And do follow us on social media handle and subscribe to our newsletter and be updated about the same. And I would also like to take this platform to announce, we got such an incredible response from the industry that, we collectively, decided at the editorial board that we will roll out a Smart Healthcare Summit, which will be a full summit, ladies and gentlemen, which will be taking from 10 onwards till about 5 in the evening, with battery of speakers and very learned, distinguished people like you see in the panel this evening. So we are doing the first one on 30th of July. It's called the Smart Healthcare Summit from Healthcare Radius. And the focus is, again, I'm saying we are very enamored by this, which is design and build as the first thing, followed by technology, automation, digitization on the 27th of August. So stay tuned for more updates. And I think my team, Sujatha, and everybody behind, Shivali, lots of people behind at Knauf and us are very, very thankful for such a lovely audience here. And thank you, wonderful to have architect Shashi, Prabhu. It's such a pleasure to see you after a long time, and such a pleasure for your contribution. Mr. Pankaj Dharkar, you have always been very supportive of ITP Media, Mr. Warrier. And I have another gentleman to thank, just that I'm just recollecting the name. Sujatha, can you give me for the gentleman from the Cygnus Hospital? It's just not coming to me because his screen is
Dr. Shuchin Bajaj. Dr. Shuchin Bajaj.
Yeah, Dr. Shuchin Bajaj. Thank you. And Naresh, thank you, everybody. And I hope to see you all again very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.